Good afternoon to all of you. Thank you very much for connecting with NDB's earnings call this afternoon. Let us now call upon Director, Group Chief Executive Officer of National Development Bank PLC, Mr. Dimantha Senaviratne, to take the presentation forward. Thank you.
Welcome all to the earnings call for the Q1 2021. On behalf of NDB, we would like to welcome all those who are taking part in the webinar. Actually, we released the results on Thursday evening to the stock exchange. Friday being a holiday in Sri Lanka, so today is the first working day available. So that is why we have scheduled the call today. And with me, I have all the business line heads: Sanjay, heading Senior Vice President, Personal Banking; Deepal, Chief Operating Officer; Suendrini, Vice President, Finance; Niran, Vice President, Treasury; Indika, Vice President, Middle Market and SME Banking; Ishani, Vice President, Project Finance; Vinod, Vice President, Wholesale and Corporate Banking; Zian, Vice President, Branch Network Management and Cards; Damita, who is Assistant Vice President, Digital Banking; and then Shankar, Assistant Vice President, Corporate Planning. So they are there who will join us later on if there are any questions, particular questions that you want to take up. So let me take you through the presentation. We have basically 5 parts: corporate profile, the operating environment, in the financial performance, and then how we have responded to the pandemic situation, and also a little bit about the way forward, and then we'll have the question and answer session. So corporate profile, as you're aware now, 41 years in operations for NDB. Now we are the 4th largest listed bank in Sri Lanka, with a credit rating of A+ from Fitch Rating, with a stable outlook. More than 3,000 staff, 113 branches, and I think the other key important element is we are the only financial conglomerate with several subsidiaries in capital market. So in NDB Investment Bank, the Wealth Management, both are market leaders, and also NDB Securities and NDB Zephyr, and also our operations in Bangladesh in the NDB Capital side. And we are the only EDGE certified corporate in Sri Lanka, representing the workplace gender equality. Of course, we have been performing quite well, and that has been recognized year after year. And these are the very recent awards that the bank have won. We were awarded as the best bank in Sri Lanka by Global Finance. This is for the 3rd year that we won for 2021. This is on the backdrop of the Banker, prestigious Banker magazine, rating us as the best bank in Sri Lanka for 2020. This is the 2nd time that we won that award. Then the Asia Money, again, Country Best Bank Awards, Best Digital Bank for 2021, and Global Finance, World's Best Digital Bank Awards, again, the World's Best Consumer Digital Bank for the 2nd consecutive year. Then Asia Money, again, Country Best Bank Award, again, Best Domestic Bank in Sri Lanka. And Global Bank and Finance, several awards, including the Best Financial Services Group Award for NDB. So, of course, we have been performing well, which is confirmed by these awards, which basically motivates us to do well further, to bring returns to our stakeholders, and also to look after our customers, who are our backbone of our success. Of course, the operating environment that we operated, the discussion today is centered upon the first quarter financials. But I think if you compare with the last year and all, there's a huge change. I think one particular one is of course the COVID pandemic that impacted the whole country and all the entire globe, with the country's GDP growth rate contracting, quite a deep recession since independence, and negative 2.3% growth in 2020. Of course, the subdued inflationary pressure. However, the inflation was managed at mid-level, but I think monetary policy was relaxed several times and policy rate was adjusted many times to ensure that the inflation is maintained at the policy target rate of between 4 to 6%. So with the accommodative monetary policy measures, we saw policy rates reduced by more than 250 basis point, statutory reserve requirement reduced by 300 basis point, and bank rate also reduced by 650 basis point. And policy and the AWPLR has come down significantly, so you would see the interest income and interest expenditure not only as all the banks have substantially reduced despite the asset growing due to the reduction in interest rates, and now the AWPLR in April is somewhere around 5.65%. The deposit rates, naturally the decline rates, so that average weighted deposit rates have been around 6 to 5.5%. The rupee depreciation for the last year was approximately 6%, and the USD exchange was around 200. Right now, there is quite a big pressure on the exchange side. Of course, the growth to credit in 2021 first quarter notably increased because country came out from the second wave of COVID and actually doing quite well when we were basically impacted by the third wave of COVID, which is we are right now going through that. So that's one concern that one has to address, which should be addressed later on. So year on year, there is a 7.5% increase in the total credit to the private sector as of March 2021 based on the central bank data. I move on to the financial performance. Despite all the challenges, especially the COVID challenge and also the resultant economic downturn, most of our clients also got impacted naturally, and all were subject to the moratorium as well as quite a significant portion initially, which came down later on. NDB managed to record a sustainable growth in the balance sheet and also record an impressive profitability. Year to date, the growth rates that you see, total assets for the first quarter 2021, we had 2% growth to cross 636 billion. Gross loans, we had 4% growth to cross 462 billion in first quarter. And deposits, again, 2% for the quarter. And first time we crossed 500 billion in deposits. Income side, year on year growth rate, I think one key element is the post-tax profitability. That was up by 34% year on year to record 2.3 billion rupees. Profit before tax by 19% to record 3.5 billion. And more importantly, the NII, net interest income, we had 18% growth to record 5.1 billion for the quarter. KPIs, the key KPIs, I would say that the ROE, we recorded 15.79 despite all these challenges for the quarter compared to 13.1% in 2020. Pre-tax ROA recorded 1.62% compared to 1.59. Net interest margin has improved. That is a positive sign there from 2020, 3% to 3.29 for the quarter. And more importantly, I think all our efforts in managing our costs, the digital drive that we are making, the workflows, and the robotic process automation, etc., all that help to improve on the cost income ratio further. And I think we have ended the first quarter with one of the best cost income ratio of 30.9%. 2020, it was 37 in the first quarter. This is a breakup of the income statement. The fund-based income, interest income, we ended up with 12.6 billion for the quarter one, compared to 13.7 billion in quarter one 2020. So there's slightly a billion rupee reduction, mainly due to the reduction in interest rates, as you also close to 300 basis point reduction in the quarter one and quarter two. I mean, if you look at the AWPLR, the drop there was quite significant from somewhere around 9.35 in quarter one 2020 to current 5.6. So almost 350 basis point reduction in the interest rates. Interest expense, again, interest expense was much steeper. So it has come down to 7.5 billion from 9.4 billion in quarter one last year. So 1.8 billion. This is despite the increase in deposit base. So mainly due to the reduction in interest rates. So as a result, the net interest income, we saw 18% growth, or 800 million increase for the quarter to cross 5.1 billion. I think one key element that we need to highlight here is in our deposit base, 58% growth in current and savings account year on year. We had 47 billion growth, which is something that we have been working hard, and now we see quite a good granular CASA coming in, helping this ratio to improve from 20% in first quarter 2020 to 26% by March. So that is especially from the retail side, we see good granular CASA coming in, and so the business banking and corporate level, having tapped the transactional banking side, we see a good improvement in the CASA side. This is detailed on the non-fund based income. There again, quite a good story. I think one of the best in terms of improvement in the non-fund or the fee-based income. If you look at all the comparator banks, the results are out. I think we have recorded one of the best non-fund based income in growth. Net fee and commission income, we recorded 1.325 billion for the first quarter, increase of almost 300 million or 29%. Other non-fund income, again 1.7 billion, increase of 35% year on year. So overall, the total non-fund based income has grown from 2.2 billion to 3 billion, 750 million increase or 33%. Of course, a couple of reasons. The net fee and commission income is driven by, one is the credit portfolio expansion, and also the continued exponential growth in the digital financial side. We had more than 400% growth in digital uptick, both in volumes and even in transactions, more than 500% increase. So those have helped us to improve on the fee-based income, especially the NEOS app, and the usage of app has helped us to get some fee income there. And one of our strategic focus is also driving the fee income in a scenario where the interest margins are low interest rates. So naturally, fee income is one of the key areas that we are focusing on. So that has helped us, and that is reflected in the financials where the non-fund income has improved. So this other thing is the fund to non-based income, non-fund based income. Again, from 25% last year, it has improved to 29%. So that's again is a substantial increase, one of the core focus area that we are working on. Then the part 3 is again on the income statement. This is on the impairment side. Naturally, with the COVID situation and resultant deterioration in some of the customers' serviceability, we have also consciously built up our impairments. So both collective and individual impairments have increased. So Q1 comparison, compared to 1.2 billion in first quarter last year, we have almost 70% increase to record 2.1 billion. These are all, I would say, some due to the deterioration in the respective individual accounts. However, on collective basis as well, we have consciously built up provisions so that to manage eventual downfall of some of these clients in case the situation continues, and that's an area where we are mindful and watching. Managing the NPLs. NPL ratio from Q3 level, I think they are slightly improved. In quarter 1 2021, NPL stood at 5.4, almost on par with the industry average, and we have been keeping very close contact with these customers who are affected, and we are monitoring through the early warning sign. There's a separate loan management unit looking at the vulnerable accounts. We also have early warning signals, watch, worry, monitor process to identify them early and then take proactive risk management arrangements, of course, with the customer together, so that we can help them out and then also mitigate the risk side. So that's something that we have to continuously do that, especially with the COVID wave 3 actually developing. I think that's something that we all have to be carefully managed, so that the business lines, the risk management function, all have been geared to manage these customers closely. But one good improvement that we have seen is the COVID impacted clients. Initially, the customers who were under moratorium last year around this time, we had about 40% of our portfolio in moratorium last year, somewhere in April, May. As at October, it has come down to around 25%, and I think as of March, when the results, first quarter results were published, it has come down to around 16-17%. However, the COVID wave 3, that can have certain impact to some of these clients' recoverability. I mean, they have returned to the normalcy, so we may have to hold their hands and support them. But compared to what it was, we saw quite a good improvement in the COVID impacted client behavior. Moving on to the operating expenses, again, quite a good story, I must say. All in all, year on year, we had 4% increase, roughly about 100 million increase from 2.4 billion to 2.5 billion. However, I think one of the controllable expenses where we saw a slight reduction as well. I think that was a very involved drive of manageable cost reduction, sustainable management of cost reduction through implementation of workflow solutions, robots, and also streamlining the processes driven by the operations team, and that has actually helped us to record one of the best cost income ratio, I think, compared to all the mid-sized bank and even larger banks. I think this is an area that we have worked really hard. So the organizational efficiency effectiveness program driven by the COO, then the migration of large number of processes, more than 12 processes to robotic processes, and workflows again more than 10, and also conversion of transactions performed by customers to digital platforms. We now have more than 80% of our transactions routed through digital channels. All that have helped us to improve on the cost income ratio, so to 30.9%. You will see the improvement since 2016 from high level of 49%, how it has come down over the years thanks to these initiatives. And these are all sustainable savings that we are making. This is about income statement, the taxation and the profitability side. There again, there's a 10% increase in VAT. Of course, income tax level, there's about 18% reduction Q1 level comparison. So total tax, 5% reduction. These are the time that the tax changes were announced, so that benefit was received in the Q1 2021. So total tax 1.1 billion. The effective tax rate you would see at Q1 2020 it was 41%, 41 to 40%, which has now come down to 33, which is one positive development. And now that the tax laws are gazetted, and then of course the clarity is made on the policies making side about the tax regime, I think that would augur well for the banks. With this level of tax, which was earlier, the banks were taxed quite high, heavily. One side we had to build up our capital base, on the other side there's a huge tax burden on us. But I think with this clarity coming in from the Treasury and the government, I think that should augur well for the banks, the banking sector, who had been supporting the economy in these troubled times, which is a good development. So profit before all taxes, we had 19% increase quarter to quarter, and then profit after tax 34% increase from 1.7 to 2.3, and profit attributable to the shareholders, a 90% increase. Enhanced profit attributable to the shareholders at group level is complemented by improved performance of the NDB group's capital market cluster. I think with the capital market activities improving in the second half last year, which is continuing even this year, we saw quite a good growth in the NDB capital market cluster, showing some good contribution coming from both the NDB Wealth, NDB Investment Banking, and even the stockbroking arm. So this is quite a good positive contribution to note. And that's basically the advantage that NDB is having group entities in these capital market clusters. And with the capital market improving, which was not the case a few years ago, we see quite a growth opportunities coming and contribution coming from all these investments. This is the balance sheet. Again, they're one of the few banks who have grown the loan book in the first quarter itself, and the total assets. We had 2% growth or year-on-year quantum growth of 83 billion, year-on-year growth of 15%. Gross loans, we had 37 billion year-on-year growth, 9% year-on-year growth to record 462 billion. And the total deposits, we crossed 500 billion for the first quarter 2021. Quarter to quarter growth was about 85 billion, 21% growth in deposits if you look at the quarter to quarter growth. So the balance sheet management was very dynamic. We were quite resilient to the external shocks. For the quarter, loan book grew by 4% despite the challenging economic conditions. And the growth, I must say, it came from all sectors of our business lines: retail, SME, wholesale banking, and also project finance. All of them contributed to this growth, even last year and even this year first quarter. So that basically helped us to have quite a well quantified, very well spread portfolio. And currency position composition of the loan book also improved slightly to 83% in rupees and 17% in foreign currency. And on the liability side, the total deposit base 500 billion, that's a milestone that we crossed. And advance to deposit ratio again 93%, which is a good position to be in. Not long ago our ADR ratio was well over 100. But it is very good to see that ADR below 100 and in mid-90s or in 93%. And the other important element is the exceptional growth in the CASA base to 129 billion. I think that's where it's important to realize that NDB as a commercial bank, we are one of the youngest commercial bank, only 15 years history as a commercial bank, though we have 41 years as the National Development Bank. But having converted to a fully fledged commercial bank, it's only 15 years. Most of our branches are relatively young, maybe 5-6 years in operation. So in that scenario, having a CASA ratio of 26% and a CASA base of 129% is something I think we have been working quite well, and that we are quite seriously still working on, but quite happy to see the progress there. And this is about the capital raising that we concluded successfully. I think this is something that I've been mentioning in all the investor webinars, investor calls that we had in the last few quarters about the capital raising activities, and we are quite pleased to note that we successfully concluded our rights issue. Our plan was initially to raise 8 billion in terms of capital, with the no fund coming in as partly underwriting arrangement and partly as a private placement. We saw NDB ending up with a rights issue plus private placement of total of 9.5 billion. So this is actually a confirmation of commitment and the expectations the shareholders have, and also a show of confidence that they have shown by contributing to the NDB's capital. So we went for a rights issue of 28 new voting shares for 61, and then for a total of 106 million shares with a 75 purchase consideration, with no fund coming in as a subscriber to the rights issue, and also the private placement going at a 10% premium to rights price at 82.50. So at the end, the breakup is given there. So rights allocated was 6.6 billion, and also with the shortfall below the 8 billion was allocated to no fund at 75 rupees, and so they have taken 1.3 billion worth of shares under that arrangement. And then under the private placement, a further 1.46 billion was contributed by no fund through the private placement. So all in all, bank raised 9.469. So quite pleased with that. And we would also like to thank all the shareholders who contributed to their rights, and also the new shareholders. There was quite a significant rights trading in the latter part of rights issue, culminated into quite a big trading on that, showing the interest of some of the key shareholders to contribute more into NDB. And then with no fund coming in, it was an overall success of 9.5 billion. So with this, actually this is the prior to the capital raising prior to rights issue. As at Q1, our capital ratios stood at 9% Tier 1, and the total capital ratio as 13.7, liquid coverage ratio of 168, and I mean all are above 90 minimum requirements. So all regulatory mandated ratios are well above the minimum requirements. However, with the rights issue, the Tier 1 is expected to improve to 11% and Tier 2 to 15%. So these are quite a reasonably good capital ratios to work on, and that would also give us a good opportunity to expand our loan book and expand our business opportunities without having any constraint on the capital side. And these are the closing price of the share. As of first quarter, it was 80.80, so slight improvement from last year, 78. Of course, towards the rights issue, the price came down. However, now I understand that today's share price is trading around 79, which is also a good opportunity for those who have taken rights at 75, and also for the no fund who is coming in. Share has already appreciated to 79. And earnings per share 30 actually almost 31 rupees. Return on equity 15.7, return on assets 1.6. Net book value, I think almost 200 rupees, and a price to book value of 0.4. So the investor ratios have enhanced, and then I'm sure this would get reflected post rights issue in the share price, which we have seen already increase in the share price today, and looking forward to some more improvement as we move along with the results and a lot of growth areas that we are targeting. This quick slide is about our response to the pandemic. I think since March, April last year, NDB was in the forefront, serving our clients despite the pandemic situation, of course, safeguarding our staff. We have divided them into 3 groups for the safety reasons, and operating the back office side, operating in 3 different locations, and branches also. We moved on to the safety measures, but with all that, one area that we focused hard was on the digital side, and our investments on that side has really paved the way, improving the digital transactions to about 80% compared to non-digital transactions. So that actually helped even the clients and even the bank also to manage the COVID situation. Branches also we opened in despite the restriction. We supported the staff, providing them transport, etc. Plus also our customers by opening them. We also introduced the bank to you branch plus banking proposition to go and carry the cash transactions doorstep to the customers, and also we were one of the first to extend our moratorium to eligible clients even more than what regulator was prescribing, and that has helped to build up the relationship with the customers and help the customers also to come out from their difficulties. So as I mentioned earlier, from a high level of 40% of the portfolio under moratorium in April last year, it has come down to 17% in March this year. So that also shows the timely support the bank has extended has helped these clients to come out from their challenging situations, and we are quite pleased. We are all in this, we are all partners here. That is where the sustainable banking is, supporting our clients when they are in difficulties, and that has all helped to help them to come out from their challenging situations. We also use the COVID lockdown situation to strategize and come with new products. So the NDB Jayagamu was one of the key products supporting the SMEs, exporters and innovators. We saw the vacuum, we saw the country's need at that time, even now, and that's where we came up with the NDB Jayagamu product, tying up with many partners, Export Development Board, the Chamber of Commerce, Daras, the Alibaba, and also the Maersk Shipping Line, and also the ERP solutions. All helped to give a holistic solution that is actually doing really well. And also with the onset of the third wave, I think with that exposure experience that we are quite geared to extend the necessary support to all our customers, and even now we are looking at ways to improve further on our customer service. And this is a quick slide on other initiatives. We have been working hard on value generation to all the stakeholders. So one is the financial results to the shareholders, customer-centric solutions, and also the considerable strides that we made in the digital side. And the other key area was the bringing the women's empowerment program that we launched last year, May, the NDB Vanita Abhimani program, the Pride of Women program, tying up with one of the leading media institution. But that was a national level recognition award scheme that was made in March 2021 in line with the International Women's Day. And that platform actually created opportunity for more than 3,000 women to showcase their talents. But I'm aware personally more than 10,000 women participated in this workshop, and that helps to improve the bank's banking on women proposition and also the bank's image in supporting these women driven businesses, which is quite good to see. And we have also commitment given to continue that for this year as well. We also looked at the employee safety, well-being, and also the contribution to the community, the tree planting, the reforestation program in Matale district, and also cleaning up the Pitawala Patan and all. While the COVID was on one side, we also looked into this side, including the mangrove plantation, smart agri programs and all. Being a serious corporate citizen to support all that aspect as well. So we are quite happy to see our efforts recognized as one of the top 10 corporate citizens by the Chamber of Commerce award scheme as well. Moving on to my final two slides, way forward. We are now on a strong platform, having built up the IT and the digital platform, getting all the business lines to contribute equally. A very agile team. I think NDB is now hungry for more business as never before. And the capital was one area that we were working hard. And now that the capital side is also addressed through the rights issue successfully, I think NDB is now geared to make our next big jump, which we launched already the Voyage 2025 in fourth quarter 2020, a 5-year strategy, midterm strategy, making NDB Group as the best banking group of choice, capitalizing on our investment in various capital market activities, getting the synergies together from investment banking, wealth management, stockbroking, giving the holistic solution to our clients, customer at the center, customer-centric solutions. So we understand what their problems are and cater to them through solutions rather than just throwing our products and services to them. So that's a key drive that we are right now working on. Transactional banking is a key area in that. Digital banking is a key area, and data-driven, data analytics-driven investments, data analytics-driven marketing are all part of this Voyage 2025 strategy. So we are quite geared with a committed team of young professionals, serious bankers, who are quite happy to continue that innovation-led industry growth. So with that, I think the prepared presentation is that's basically ends the presentation. Now it's time for your question and answers, and we are happy to take your questions, and myself and my team are quite ready to answer whatever the questions that you may have. So please use the chat option in Microsoft Teams, pose your questions so that either myself or our panel can take those questions. Thank you. There's one question asking about what is the interest rate expectation for the rest of 2020. Probably I leave that question to our treasurer, Niran. Niran, can you elaborate on that? Question is about what is the interest rate expectation for rest of the 2021.
Yeah, we feel that the rates will remain at the current levels. I doubt any changes in the policy rates, especially very doubtful that there will be any upward revision. But of course, we have seen the treasury bill rates slightly picking up, but that is mainly driven by the from the surprises because the banks are also reluctant to invest very much on the 1-year rates right now. But having said that, we feel that the rates will remain unchanged, and maybe we might see a slight few basis points increase from the current level, probably towards the latter part of this year. But
Thanks.
it will not be a very, like a significant move at all.
Okay, probably Niran, you can take the second question as well. Question is, do you expect the strong growth in net interest income in this quarter to keep growing at this rate despite the low interest rate environment? How do you supplement this growth?
Yeah, probably yes, because what we have seen is there has been a steep drop in the in our cost of funds as well, but however the yields are coming down from the loan side as well. But as long as that we have a good dynamic management of our ALCO process to the assets and liability management scene, I think I'm sure we can defend the NIMs, whatever the current yields, we should be able to defend it. And also the capital coming in, that is another advantageous position that we are going to be in, because we have a good steady 6 months where we can utilize that the capital funds as well on the growth momentum. So I think that we should defend it, and also there should be a growth in the NIMs as well.
Yeah, correct. And also the other thing that might supplement this growth is, I believe, the fee-based income. We have been concentrating on improving the fee-based income. There's another question on the digital side. Can you discuss key drivers of income from your digital services? And also the next question is, what percentage of revenue could you attribute to digital channel? So Damita, can you take that question?
Yes, CEO. When it comes to the key digital drivers, I think we have seen the increase in digital revenue mainly through ATM CRMs, and also through NEOS platform when it comes to fund transfers. And also we have seen the increase of bill payments. So those commissions, and also with the QR implementation, the commission that we get from that platform. The percentage, I think probably Surendra will be able to help me on that.
I think I covered in the presentation about 80% of our transactions were covered through digital channels. But in terms of revenue, I would say that quite a good percentage of, if you look at our fee-based income, quite a good percentage of that has come from the digital channels as well. And that is growing. I mean, that's good thing to note. We are quite happy with the growth. Probably it's too early for us to give as a percentage, because that's something that we have been also working to improve. So whilst we are happy with the growth rate, probably it's not the time for us to discuss about the percentage right now. There's one question. What have you heard from? I would like both Indika and Vinoj, Ishani probably to give a answer. This is about the clients. What have you heard from the clients on the impact of business from the third wave, and what are your views on any potential additional impairment resulting from it? So probably we can ask Indika to go first, who's handling the business banking and SME clients, who are basically the first to get impacted. Indika?
Yeah, actually, just once we realized there's a third wave on the way, we started centrally contacting one of the SME clients because, as you all know, SME refers to get impacted. So it's actually we are getting a mix responses. Some clients some are affected badly, and there are some clients who are resilient and who can pay. So therefore, we have to look at the requirement, and we are centrally offering restructures to these clients, and that's the process going on now. Because if this continues, of course, there will be definitely impact to the SME clients, which we are ready because we have the experience how we handled the previous during the second moratorium. So and during the second wave. So we are proactively looking at talking to the client. We put separate team. Some are calling from working from home. Even they are calling, contacting the clients and get the real feedback. And we are trying to manage it. Of course, there will be a impact because there are some clients who will be affected as well.
Vinod, Janik, want to add something to this?
Yes, with regard to the corporate clients, I think having gone through this, I think this kind of a situation in the last two cycles, they are very resilient. I think they have taken necessary precautions very early. I think even the apparel sector working in a bio bubble, and also like even other sectors which have actually done during the COVID, done well during the COVID period are kind of well equipped to handle this. But like Indika said, I think if the situation prevails like for another couple of months or maybe longer, then I think the situation may not be that rosy. But up to now, they have been managing well.
Okay. There's another question, probably Suendrini can take this. What is the dividend yield? Ishan, you want to go and share something?
Just to add, CEO, up to now, the project financing has been progressing well in terms of implementation. Only if the situation continues, that implementation can get slowed down. But as Vinod said, the corporate clients have made their respective plans well ahead.
Sure. Suendrini, will you take the next question, which is about the dividend yield compared to other banks, other listed banks?
Yeah. So if you compare trend, NDB's dividend yields is around 6 to 7%. And if you compare with Sampath Commercial and HNB, they range in the range of around 4 to 6%. So I think we are not so far. So our dividend yields have been in the range of 6 to 7%, and I think we can maintain that as well. Yeah.
Okay. Next question is on NPLs. NDB's NPA ratio is currently slightly above the industry average. How much further do you expect this to increase as loans come out of moratorium? I would say that, as I mentioned earlier, the exposure under moratorium has come down to around 17% of the book as at March, the end of the first quarter. However, it's too early for us to share any info in terms of the impact of the third wave. But the way that we looked at prior to the third wave, as at April, when we looked at, we realized that even that 17% exposure under moratorium, good 80-90% of the clients are able to basically come out from that with the proper restructuring, and they have the ability to basically service that. And also in that, we have tourism impacted clients as well. If you look at our overall portfolio, the tourism exposure is around 3 to 3.5%. Of that, about 1% is in Maldives. Maldives is back in tourism. So basically, you're talking about 2 to 2.5% exposure in tourism. But that again, we don't have that much of impacted clients. Most of them are able to, moment the tourism situation is improved, they are able to service this. So I think as at March, April, our situation was much better. We didn't have any concerns on NPAs rising. However, third wave, how that is coming out, the situation, if situation is not controlled sooner, then we may have not only us, the entire industry will have to look at the credit arrangements, probably the moratorium side, we may have to relook at it, because if based on how the third wave is, how long will it going to take? So based on that, so it's a bit early for us to comment on that. But as at April, we were very confident of managing our NPLs even below the 5% range in April. There's one question on, can you give a general idea about the portion of deposits that are sticky and not responsive to interest rates? Probably Sanjay, who's driving the deposit side on the retail banking. Can you please take this the question? Sanjay, you're on mute.
Yes, yes. I think mainly we have actually diversified our deposit base. The growth has not been in the big ticket items. So we have actually gone into the real retail level. So those deposits will remain, although the interest rates are low. The opportunities for customers to invest in different products or alternative channels are less. So we see stable deposits going in, and we actually see a huge growth in deposits than the advances if you compare, and that's why if you see our advanced deposit ratio has come down.
Okay. Thank you, Sanjay. The next question is on how the credit appetite has been with the third wave coming in, and has the bank taken any precautions measure to curb the lending? I think our appetite has always been cautious. Our underwriting standards are quite high. I have been repeatedly saying this in previous webinars as well. As a development bank, I think the underwriting skills, the credit monitoring mechanism, all are quite solid at NDB. And what we have done is further strengthening that by having a loan management mechanism, the early warning sign mechanism, the watch worry monitor account mechanism. All that has helped for us to proactively understand where the issue can be. So therefore, we are not unnecessarily worried about the future expansion of the book. We have been careful, we'll be cautious. But as I mentioned earlier, the third wave, the continuation of that, we have to be mindful. Ultimately, we have to deploy our customers' deposits in a cautious manner, whilst also ensuring the support to the economy. And the backbone of the economy, we have quite a significant exposure to the SME side. We need to support them as well. So are the corporate and project finance side. There are projects where project finance is the leading funder of all the renewable energy projects. We have more than 30% of the renewable energy projects that have been financed in the last 5 years. 30% have been funded by NDB. So that speaks volumes. And these are key projects that will continue with the situation. So I think one area that we may be careful can be in the first couple of months with the COVID situation continuing, can be again the SME side and retail side. One has to be careful on that. But the other more strongly footed corporates, project finance side, and even the employed sector, the retail side, I think we'll be still supporting them while taking a cautious approach on the SME side for a few months. And I'm sure this would be over very soon because the upside potential for the country is very high. I think we have been battered by the COVID situation. Prior to that, the Easter attacks, all that the last 1.5 to 2 years have been quite a bit of challenging year for all of us. I think you can't keep a country like us under radar. We will bounce back soon, and when we bounce back, I'll assure you, NDB is there to help, and that's where we have laid strong platforms. And I think we are quite geared to support that growth the country needed. That is what we did even during the COVID wave 1 and 2, introducing the Jayagamu project and also the Vanitha Abhimani. Even here, we will take what is necessary as the fourth largest bank in the country to provide that support, whilst ensuring the cautiousness in protecting our credit quality. There's one question on, are you all expecting any mergers and acquisitions in the sector? Of course, in the recent tax announcements, and also if you look at the roadmap launched by the central bank do support the consolidation in the financial sector, starting with the non-bank financial institution side, and thereafter leading towards the banking side as well. And in that, they have specifically mentioned certain tax concessions for consolidation expenses and all. I think as a country in a growing situation, I think you need some stronger financial institutions as well. So taking all that into consideration, I think consolidation, some mergers and acquisitions, I think that is that should happen, provided there are more conducive arrangements in terms of managing staff, HR side, all that. If that is there, I think we should see some good mergers and acquisitions as well, because the country needs some strong banking system as well to support that. There's a question on what is the percentage of foreign currency assets into total assets. I think that was shared somewhere around, Suendri, at 17%, right?
23%. CEO.
How much?
23 on your total assets. The
Totally. Loan book, yeah, loan book 17, total assets 23%.
23%, yes.
Okay. There's one question. CBSL is expecting a double-digit private credit growth for 2021, and Central Bank has outlined credit growth target for SME sector. How does the NDB plan to cope with it? What is the SME's percentage of NDB's loan portfolio? Probably, Indika, you can take that question.
Yeah, as a, I think percentage of portfolio is around 20%. Of course, we were actually very positive when we were looking at the possibility on SME sector. We all know that is an important sector of the economy as well. But because we had a very aggressive plan initially, but with the present development, again, we have to have a cautious approach, because we have to maintain our credit standards going while meeting the government as well. So we are looking at positively, but very cautiously, given the present condition. Hopefully, this present situation won't last long. And with that, we want to support the SME sector, because we were with SME over the last 4 decades. So our clientele also very resilient. We know initially the first moratorium, they are about 50%, and when you come to the third, I think the CD10, it came down to 25%. That shows the resilience of the clients. So we are cautiously looking at it, and of course we are having growth plans, but we'll look at the present situation also. After that, we can change accordingly our growth plans on the SMEs.
Thanks. Of course, if you look at those priority sectors identified, most of them are also in NDB's credit appetite metrics, especially the agriculture, the smart agri and all. So I think we are geared to support them, and as Indika mentioned, subject to the credit concerns that some may have, but certainly we are quite geared to support that growth. There's one question again on what are the main drivers for increasing fee and other income. I think it has mainly come from digital side and also the volume growth in our business, especially with the customer-centric solutions approach, which have been deployed in our new strategy. Transactional banking is a key element where we would be looking at not only the straight through funding, but we would also look at supporting their transactions. So that way you earn a fee income. So that has also contributed substantial support to the fee income. Then even the credit card side, the fee income has improved. This was the fee income area that was we had to forego that soon after the COVID situation for a few months, and now that is also back, and that also has helped. But more importantly, the cross-selling and the transactional banking side, even the focus approach on BASA and the retail SME on the trade volumes, all that have contributed apart from the digital to get a good fee-based income in the first quarter. There's a question on what are your views on the restriction on imports, especially on vehicles, and how it affects and going to affect for the business segments, mainly leasing. Okay, I think probably Sanjay can take the latter part on the leasing side, but I just want to give my views on the restrictions on imports. I think that is for a purpose which we are all aware when the country is quite challenged with the limitations in our exports due to the global crisis. Different countries have to manage their situation in different ways. So that our answer to that, Sri Lanka's answer to that was to curbing on the imports and ease the pressure on the dollar-rupee rate. And I think the measures that have been taken so far has helped so far. Of course, there is a sector which is the vehicle importers that has been affected. However, there have been concessions that have been announced for the local assembly of vehicles. I think that should augur well, provided there are firms to start this up. We do also have 1 or 2 clients in that segment. We are looking at their ability to come and fill this gap. Apart from vehicles, there are so many other imports that have been restricted, and there is a set of clients who are impacted, especially those who are trading. Again, part of our clientele as well. But in the country's overall stability, overall benefit of the country, I think sometimes we have to curtail this for a short period so that we can manage the situation, and as we move to a better position to allow those imports to start. So that's my personal view. Sanjay, want to give an input on the leasing side?
Yes, on leasing side, complementing with what CEO said, on the leasing side, we don't see any effect on that because we were anyway funding loan-to-value ratio was 50% for brand new and imported vehicles. But now the second-hand market is active and we can lend up to 70%. So we don't see that much of an effect for the business.
Okay. Another question on what percentage of banks' loans are currently under moratorium. I think I answered that it is around 17%. And the next part is, does the bank expect that there could be extension to the tourism sector moratorium if the ongoing third wave continues? Probably it's too early to comment. I think tourism sector moratoriums have been extended till Indica September, right?
Yes, till September.
Till September, so it's a bit too early for us to comment on that. Next question is on around 10 billion deposit growth is coming from foreign fixed deposits. What drove this increase, and is there any deposits coming from no fund? Okay. Of course, so far we have no deposits from no fund. No fund is purely coming in as an equity investor. But of course, apart from that, they will join us in terms of funding so many other projects as a financier. But the reason for the increase in deposits, foreign currency deposits, is basically are we tapping some large deposits, making use of even the special deposit arrangement as well, and our retail side and corporate side both tapping some good deposits. So that is the reason for the growth in foreign currency deposits. One more question, probably Suendrini can take this. The question is, first quarter 21 was taken the retrospective impact of the lower tax rate introduced in 2020. And can you explain how much reverse due to income tax reversal and how much increase due to deferred tax assets impact? Suendrini, can you?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So the net impact is actually approximately 10% of our profit after tax for the quarter. So if you take the income tax reversal was higher, it was around approximately 400 to 500 million, and there was a deferred tax charge as well, which resulted in only about 10% of the profit after tax being recognized as the impact of this rate change on income tax.
Okay. Looks like that's all the questions that we have. Do you have any other questions? So in that sense, let's conclude this webinar. Thank you very much for taking part, and thank you very much for some of these interesting questions posed as well. Of course, the bank is on the right path. We are quite geared to work based on the new capital call that we made that was successfully subscribed, and with that, that has strengthened our hands. So would like to thank all the stakeholders, shareholders, and also the investor community for supporting the bank. And we would like to thank all of you for taking part in the webinar, and looking forward to something similar in next quarter as well. Thank you very much. And with that, we conclude the investor webinar. Thank you.